Hey guys. So I was in the bathtub this evening and I had the idea to start an ASMR channel, and the basis for my channel, or what I would like for it to be, is ASMR for people with depression. And this is a topic that's extremely important to me, and I'm very passionate about, because I myself have suffered from chronic depression since I was a little girl, since I was 5. And I've struggled throughout my life, and I've tried many different methods and medications and doctors and just many different things. Some of them healthy, some of them not. And I just want to start out by saying that this channel is not meant to cure depression, and it is not a supplement for any kind of maybe medications or treatments that that anybody is doing. So please do not take this channel as anything other than another additional method of relief when you're suffering. And for me personally, I don't know about the rest of you, but I know that a lot of people, when they deal with depression, are more susceptible at night. And at night, the world is dark, and you're feeling alone, and you can't sleep. Insomnia is a big player in it. And you don't always want to pick up a phone and call a friend, especially if it's 4 in the morning. And it can be a really lonely time, and it can be a really scary time, and it can be a very hopeless feeling. You can feel very helpless. And when I'm in that place at night, I often try to watch some of my favorite ASM artists, and while some of them talk about having depression, or some of them talk about certain aspects, I guess, of mental illness, or dealing with things like that. Some of them have positive affirmation videos, which are awesome. These are all really helpful things. So I decided that I would like to try doing videos that are specifically geared toward people suffering from depression and mental illness, or maybe you don't have chronic depression like I do, or maybe you're just going through a hard time and you're feeling alone and you're feeling isolated. And this channel is my attempt to reach out and relate to people, to help people understand that they're not alone. And even in the middle of the night, when you feel like you're the only person in the whole world, you're not. There are millions of other people experiencing the exact same problems you are. And so I wanted to create a safe space where people could maybe find some relief knowing that they're not alone. And also, I would like to talk about some of the healthy things that I do to experience some relief. I've yet to come across anything that takes pain away. However, there are things that ease it, and ASMR has definitely been one of them for me. But there are some other things, so I thought it would be interesting to do videos based on different techniques and things related to trying to cope with depression or mental illness, and maybe just bring some awareness to people and some comfort, because I know that when I'm in that space, especially late at night or just when I'm alone and trying to maneuver through my day, that every little bit helps, and anything anyone does that comes from a loving, kind place where they're projecting positive energy toward me and wishing me well, all matters. And sometimes I can't feel it, and sometimes I can't seem to believe that the positivity is out there, but this video should be living proof that people care, and I am one of those people. And like you, and like so many people, I am on a journey of discovery to try to learn to cope and to live well. And I want that for everyone else who suffers from this type of thing, or just people who experience some of the same symptoms that I do. So, with that, I will get started. So, as most I've mentioned before, I have suffered from chronic clinical depression since I was 5 years old, and I'm currently on medication, and I see a therapist weekly, and I am in contact with my primary care physician too, and they're all in the loop, which I think is really important for me. However, I found that I seem to have treatment-resistant depression, and that does not mean that I am stopping any of the treatments, because I do, because they help some, but not quite as much as I would like. And so I have, after many years of suffering with this thing, I've also found a handful of things that can help in the moment when I just am completely lost and don't know what to do. So, to start with, one theme that you will find in my videos is music. I am a musician, and so playing music and singing and writing music often helps release some of that negative energy, but in a positive way. And it's really nice to be able to turn something dark into something beautiful. But I realize one, not all people have musical ability, or their brain isn't wired quite in that way. So the other part of that is there are many times, for as much as I love to write music, I love to play music, I love to sing, oftentimes with depression, I don't have the energy to do any of that. And I look at my guitar with like disdain because I just can't bring myself to do it. And it's very frustrating and frightening. And so in those moments, I listen to music. And I'm sure a lot of you do. And one little thing that I've noticed is when I was younger, I would listen to my sad, depressing music that kind of coincided with the feelings I was having. And that can be therapeutic and might work for some. But I found that it can also sort of re-traumatize you or keep you in that negative space. And so now I prefer to listen to music that is soothing, but also uplifting and positive, and maybe not spend so much time wallowing in the negative. So, with each of my videos, I'm going to be using a vinyl record that I find fits this description of being soothing and uplifting and kind of meeting me where I'm at in my depressed state, but then also helping to kind of lift me out of it. So you'll see here, this one is one of my absolute favorites, and it is Sam Cooke, Portrait of a Legend. This is like a basically greatest hits tribute. And this is one of the best records I've ever owned. And I highly recommend it. And the reason being is that not only does it has songs that can be meet you kind of in that depressed space, like A Change Is Gonna Come, or Jesus Gave Me Water, Sad Mood, but it also, I find that the Motown era, which I particularly love, the Motown era also is wonderful for having that upbeat, positive. They can even turn a sad subject like a breakup or something of that nature into something that you're kind of bebopping along to, and this is no exception. Songs like Cupid, Bring It On Home to Me is one of my all-time favorite songs, and it has that soothing vibe, but it also is uplifting. So that is the music recommendation for this video. Like I said, in future videos, if I find that people like my videos and like this idea, I will continue with other albums that I use. Also, I welcome any songs or albums that you find that you use to soothe your soul and maybe uplift you in a way. And if you do, I would love for you to leave them in the comments, and I'd love to see the similarities that we have, and then I'd also love to learn about new albums that could help me. So by all means, bring on the tunes. So moving on from the music, I'm just going to adjust here a bit. So moving on from music, one thing that I've found, and I actually found by accident, was that I take baths every day. Like, I take baths all of the time. And I've discovered after doing some reading that oftentimes people with depression, or when people feel lonely, they take a bath. And there's some scientific thing about raising your body temperature and being surrounded by warm water that triggers some of the neurotransmitters in your brain that also function when you're receiving a hug or being touched by somebody that you care about or in a loving way. So that is one of my number one go-to things that I do. And so to kind of expand on that, I prefer to use my bath time as a relaxation versus hygiene. So I take showers to, do the daily business, but when I want to just unwind, or if I'm feeling really down, I will immediately hop in the tub, draw myself a hot bath, and I have a few different things that I use. Very often I use bath salts. This is like almost daily. I love bath salts because the salts can help soothe any kind of achy muscles that you have. A lot of times people with depression have a lot of stress, and they get a lot of tension in their shoulders and neck, and so the salt itself can help soothe those aches that come from the stress of our minds going like a rat in a wheel all day. So I love bath salts. There's a lot of different scents that you can get. There are also some that have no scent if you are sensitive to smells and don't like them. However, I find that eucalyptus or eucalyptus mint is the most soothing for me, and it's also kind of effervesces a little bit, and so I just feel relaxed and refreshed when I'm done. So I love using the bath salts, and I usually do, I think this was an old coffee scoop, and I do about 1 to 2 scoops in my bath while it's running, so that it gets kind of mixed in there. And I absolutely love that. And you don't have to have this brand. This was something I picked up, I think, at, I don't know, TJ Maxx or something, but I always look for the eucalyptus scent because it's my favorite, but there's also lavender and vanilla and lots of other different kinds. So this is one thing that I highly recommend if you want to try the bath option. And for all you fellas out there, I find that a lot of males don't think about taking a bath, or they don't take them very often, and it's really too bad because they absolutely should. It's beneficial to everyone. So I strongly, strongly recommend, if you haven't done it, that you should try it. I apologize for the little bit of shuffling around sound. My dog Milo is just finding a comfy spot on the floor. This also has some great sound to it. So that's my bath salt scoop, pun intended. Another thing that I do sometimes with bath time is I will do a foam bath or a bubble bath. And I just came across this one and I really like it. It's from Bath and Body Works and it is called Black Chamomile. And it's an aromatherapy, or in their aromatherapy collection. And it's really nice. It's very subtle, and the foam is nice, makes your skin feel great. And so this is something that I just discovered and I found that I like. The chamomile oil, I'm not that familiar with aromatherapy and how it all works, but apparently the chamomile oil is calming, and there's an oil in here that I can't pronounce, but it supposedly creates a sense of well-being, which who couldn't use that, right? So I just kind of eyeball it and dump in some of this and get as much foamy goodness as I want, and then just soak in there. So I really, really love this. And there's also a pillow spray of the same scent, it's the same brand, same scent, and it's a pillow spray that you use. You just lightly, a couple of spurts on your pillow, and it supposedly will help you sleep and give you some of that same calming effect. And it's again part of that aromatherapy collection from Bath and Body Works, and I just now discovered it. I actually got it as a gift and I really love it. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about trying some new bath time relaxation products. Another very important aspect to bath time for me, or really actually I found that even just before I go to bed, candles are very, very useful. The light that they give off is extremely peaceful and creates a warm feeling, which is really necessary when you're hurting. So I like to go with like a woodsy scent. That's kind of my go-to. I prefer a subtle, natural scent versus a perfume scent. So that's definitely a matter of matter of taste, if you will. But I do prefer the sandalwoods, teak woods, things like that. This one is called Woodland Escape, and it's scented pine cone, patchouli, and warm woodland spices. So I like this one. But this one's a little bit strong, so I can't leave it burning for too terribly long, or else it'll kind of be overpowering. So I like to go with something really subtle that's not going to keep you awake or be really distracting. So that's important to think about when you're going to use a candle. But just the light and the warmth and the aromatherapy scent can really help keep you present and keep your mind from wandering into some pretty dark places. Oftentimes with my bath, I will occasionally, and this is more rare, but occasionally I'll do some self-pampering with, for example, like a face mask. You know, just even if the mask itself doesn't necessarily do any particular thing that I want it to do, the fact that I'm doing something good for my skin and that is a positive, healthy, proactive activity does actually kind of make me feel better. Makes me feel less helpless. Makes me feel like I have some control, just by doing little things that are good for me and that are maybe relaxing or a special treat. So if I have the energy to get myself into the tub and, you know, get myself into a relaxed enough space, I'll add a face mask to my regimen. Or sometimes I'll use a hair mask or something like that. But that's just another suggestion. Now moving on from bath time, a key thing that has done wonders for me, and it's something that I could definitely stand to improve on or do more often, is to meditate. And so, my little Buddha guy here, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I prefer guided meditation because it does help me stay focused. I have a very hard time, I know a lot of people do, with depression. Our minds wander and they ruminate. They tend to ruminate on the negative. And so for me, having either the singing bowls or a lot of times just the singing bowls ringing on occasion will help me to kind of come back to center and meditate. And I know it sounds maybe a little hokey or maybe anything that sounds even remotely religious, which Buddhism isn't exactly, it's not a religion, it's a practice, but can be intimidating to people or turn people off, or maybe you've had traumatic experiences in the past that gave you some predispositions. But the art of meditating, especially when I'm depressed, has been so incredible because it helps me stop ruminating and forces me to clear my mind, and I tend to focus in my mind's eye, I tend to focus on something positive. It's something I can do lying down in my bed in my room, or I can do in a group, depending on my level of energy. So when you're so depressed that you can't even brush your hair or your teeth and your whole body aches because you just are in so much emotional pain that it becomes physical, and the thought of even getting up to get a glass of water is daunting and exhausting and feels impossible. When you feel like you're in that moment and you feel so helpless to do anything, and I get there, I can literally lay in my bed, adjust my body to be in a comfortable, relaxed space. I will turn on my phone to the singing bowls or to a guided meditation. You can get them on YouTube. There are apps you can use. And all you have to do is lay there and keep trying to clear your mind. Force yourself to focus on nothing at all, or choose a positive image or idea and focus on that. And when the negative thoughts start to come through, and the self-loathing and the self-doubt and all of the things that plague our brains, you acknowledge them and you let them go, and you focus back on the positive or the clear head. And I have found this to be the most effective mode of coping in the moment when I'm feeling chaos or when I'm feeling powerless. That ability to stop and say, I'm going to do this thing. Maybe it's only for 5 minutes. Whatever you can do, if you can get yourself to do that, it very often will put me in a better headspace. And it kind of works like an upward spiral. You can get into a better headspace and perhaps get out of bed, or make yourself something healthy to eat, or maybe it's just pet your dog, or whatever baby steps leads you out of the darkness. So if you haven't tried it, don't be afraid. I recommend it. There's no wrong way to do it. I just highly recommend that option. Now, there are some books that I've read that have helped me understand the art of meditation to some degree. This one is by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it is called The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching. And it is a little bit of a tough read. It's pretty in-depth and can be, a bit of a slow read, a bit of a challenge. This was more once I started to realize the benefits of meditating. I wanted to try to maximize those benefits and understand more about how it worked and how to just feel better naturally. And I found a lot of useful information. In fact, my copy has tons of notes in the margins, and so I keep this close by and refer back to it pretty frequently. But like I said, this one is a kind of an intense read, or a little bit more in depth than perhaps a beginner might be interested in, but you can give it a shot. And if you find yourself maybe getting overwhelmed with it, set it aside, but hang on to it, because you'll probably come back to it. A less intimidating book that I really have enjoyed a lot is How to Practice. And this one is, it's How to Practice, The Way to a Meaningful Life. And it's written, it's translated and edited by a man named Jeffrey Hopkins, but it's the words of the Dalai Lama. And it's very lighthearted, as the Dalai Lama is. It's very lighthearted, and it's a wonderful guide to how to just daily focus on that positivity, and if you can't, what to do about that. Because it's so frustrating for people like myself with depression that people are like, oh, you just have to change your attitude. Happiness is a choice. Well, it's not a choice for people with depression. Our brain is turning against us and not making happiness a choice per se. But there are ways to weather the storm until you can get to that place where you can choose happiness or you can feel it. And these types of things that I'm talking about are all things that help with that for me. So this one is a great read for the newbies. Another thing that I can recommend, and I haven't done this one in a while, but this book is called The Book of Awakening, and this is not religious in nature whatsoever. It is by a man named Mark Nepo, and this was written by a man who had cancer and is now in remission, and his cancer kind of gave him a perspective on life and the beauty of life and the simplicity of life and how we can sometimes overcomplicate things. And so what's cool about this book is it's every day on the date, every day it has a little story, and then it gives you bullet points to think about, and kind of what things to start or end your day with, like on a positive spin. And so sometimes when things are getting all hectic in my day, sometimes I can refer back to this, and it will kind of snap me out of it. But there are also lengthy periods of time where I don't have the energy to pick up a book. I don't have the energy to even have the mental capacity to even take any of this stuff in. So please don't think just because I'm suggesting this that I'm 100% at it. It does help when I do it, but sometimes depression is so overwhelming that it keeps you from doing the things that are good for you. And that is one of the most frustrating and difficult parts about mental illness, is your brain tricks you into thinking that you don't need to do this stuff, or that you can't. And unfortunately, sometimes it's right. You can't. But if you just keep plugging away and trying all these little things, all the little things you come up with to feel better, you can plow through that temporary dark space and get back to a lighter space for a bit. And it doesn't feel so hopeless. So this is one thing that I recommend as kind of a daily affirmation thing. Another thing that I have found that helps, again, this does require a certain amount of energy, which very often I don't have, and that is journaling. This one's actually pretty beat up because I use it for a coaster, and it can be kind of just, it can just lay around for sometimes months. Sometimes my entries end up with months in between. Sometimes I stuff little little notes in here. I'm guessing this is probably like, oh, this is a letter I wrote to the universe. But this, the process of writing this out, sometimes it's just bullet points about how I'm feeling. Sometimes it's regular journal entries, like what you would expect, things that have happened during my day or thoughts that I'm having. Sometimes it's song lyrics for me. I like to incorporate, I just, whatever, I can do a free write of really anything, and I do. Sometimes it's little nice affirmations that friends have left for me. Sometimes I have very little energy, so I just write bullet points. Sometimes when I'm really self-loathing and really in a bad place, I will bullet point all of the reasons that I'm a lovable, worthy person. And I know that probably sounds really hokey or silly or something, like old Saturday Night Live clips of Pat. For those of you old enough to remember, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. It feels a little like that, but but it does work, and it's hard sometimes to believe the things that you write down, but you know in your head, you know that they're true. You know what quirks you have that are, endearing. You know that people love you. You know this. Sometimes you just need to write it down and prove it to yourself, or refer back to it and remind yourself. Some of the stuff that's in here that I've written are really dark, and that's okay too. I actually wrote a contract for myself where I was going to continue fighting and give my self permission to stop fighting in so many years. Now, I don't recommend that. I took this immediately to my therapist and read it to him, and talked through it. It was kind of just one of those things I needed to just get out there, and I did it, and it's kind of sad to me sometimes to read it and remember that I was in such a place, but it was what it was, and it's just another page in my history. So if you can, get yourself a journal and try journaling random thoughts. You can journal random thoughts, you can journal creative things, you can journal happy affirmations, or your deepest, darkest, sickest, twistedest thoughts, and it doesn't matter. It's all good. And sometimes, like I said, I prefer to take this to my therapist as a reminder of where I'm at, or because sometimes with depression, I get so deep in it that I actually kind of almost lose touch with reality for a little bit, and sometimes it's important to remember the dark places that you go so that you can talk to somebody about them, and maybe kind of analyze them a little bit and hash them out, or figure out how you can better cope with those or manage that. So I really like the journaling exercise. That does help. And last but not least, this one is going to sound the wackiest of all of the things I've talked about, but my friends used to make fun of me for this too, actually. But one thing that I found to be helpful is to do something mundane that isn't, that requires thought, but it kind of occupies your mind. So in my case, I often do puzzles. And I'll just have a puzzle going on the table that I can just kind of stop and look at. It's a quiet thing that you can do in the middle of the night if you're struggling with insomnia. And I found that you can pick a photo that is soothing, like this mountain scene here, and if you choose the right level of difficulty, it takes up all of your brain energy, and doesn't allow for you to ruminate on the negative things or the things that are causing your pain. You can kind of just zone out on it, and I find that to be really helpful. And it doesn't have to be a puzzle. It could be, there are definitely other things that can help you do that too, like, maybe it's a crafting thing, or maybe, I don't know, maybe for some it's maybe video games or something, I don't know, but for me, I found puzzles to be really useful. In fact, I've even used puzzles to get through breakups when I was constantly replaying the breakup in my head, or replaying the relationship, or obsessing about the person and only driving myself crazy and hurting myself more. I would do puzzles, and that would help take my mind off of the useful obsessing and worrying, and that doesn't help anyone. And it was relaxing and kind of cathartic. So this is one thing that I definitely recommend that you find your puzzle, your thing. So yeah. So that's what I have for today. Like I said, I just wanted to try this out and see if it was something people responded to, see if it was something people could relate to. Perhaps maybe it's just for my own therapy too, But I really, my heart really goes out to anyone who's struggling with the loneliness and the isolation and the pain and the rumination and the exhaustion and the guilt and fear and all of those things that come with mental illness, and they come from the center of your brain, so you don't even, it feels like there's no way to stop it, and you feel like you're so alone, and you feel like there's no purpose for anything, and you feel like you don't have the energy to do anything. But just remember, it's temporary, it's common, you're not alone. There are a lot of different methods and treatments out there, and what works for some doesn't work for others, and maybe what hasn't worked for you in the past could work in the future. But for right now, in this moment, I just want you to know that you're loved, and that you are worthy, and you're worthwhile, and you matter. You matter to me, and you matter to everyone, from your coffee barista to your family to your friends to the people that you work with, and everyone in between. And even though you can't feel it, that's okay. Let me feel it for you right now. And eventually, you will feel that positive positive energy. Again, this is temporary. So sending you positive energy and love, and I hope that this brought you some comfort. And if this video is something that you like or respond to, please leave a comment. And if you have anything, topics or suggestions or critiques, by all means, send them my way. And until next time,